Hi, I'm Megan.
I'm Colin.
We are the hosts of Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter. Thank you for coming on this journey with us, whether it's your first episode or many that you've listened to. Today is episode 578, and we're going to be talking about why your onboarding process matters. We want to thank Pet Sitters Associates for sponsoring today's episode, and also our executive producers through Patreon. They are Adriana, Barbie, Beck and Erica, Jan and Janie, Jenny and Julie, Catherine and Keith, Liz and Lori, Lucy, Sarah, Savannah, Scott and Teresa, and Yvonne. Thank you for finding value in the show. Thank you for giving back, supporting, listening to the episodes, sharing with a friend. We appreciate it all. If you are listening and would like to become an executive producer with them, you can go to petsitterconfessional.com/support to see the ways that you can help out.
So recently, Megan and I won a gift certificate to a local business that we wanted to use, and we were excited to try out their services for the first time. It's something we had never done before, but the entire onboarding process and actually getting up to the point of using those services and redeeming that gift certificate was quite a headache for us. We had a lot of different steps and it was pretty confusing. And it made us really think about the importance of having a new client experience that is really emblematic of how you want your business to operate and how you want to represent your business to new clients and why that experience really showcases you as a business.
We don't want our businesses to be confusing. We want them to be very simple, straightforward. Clients don't want to be confused. They want to know exactly what the next steps are, to have that clear process and that roadmap laid out for them.
So when we talk about onboarding here, we're really talking about the entire process of bringing a new person into your business. That's going to educate them about what you do and how you do it. It's going to expose them to your professionalism and all of these experiences. It's going to allow them to see you for who you are, and is really the first taste of their experience with you. I know some people may include the marketing messaging and all of this stuff as part of the onboarding, but we're really going to start with somebody who is interested in using your services and has contacted you and is ready to actually book you, but you have to walk them through several steps. So when we talk about onboarding, that's where we're focused on right now.
But the process needs to be smooth. It's super important to have that smooth onboarding process because that's what clients expect. They want convenience. They want clear communication. They want minimal friction. They want to know exactly A, B, C, what do I do? And so marketers often say when you have somebody interested in your business, you need to clarify for them what the 3 steps are. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Don't make it any more complicated than it has to be, and don't really include any more steps than the first 3. It's like going to a restaurant and trying to figure out what do I want on the menu, and there's 87 different options. It's too much. People just want to know the first couple, and then when they complete those, you can tell them the next steps after that.
Yeah, but this, again, is really their first impression with you. This is beyond the marketing messaging, the videos that they see, the reels, or the ads on Facebook that you're running. This is what sets the tone for the entire client relationship that you are going to have together over the duration of their using your services. So what do you want that to be? We want that to be smooth, right? We want that to be seamless and frictionless and easy for them to come on board. We want to showcase how we operate, because if they have a bad experience there, that's what they apply to and take into every other experience that you want them to have in your business.
They say, this first impression wasn't good, so probably the next one and the following step won't be easy for me either. That first impression is so important. Not only in relationships, but business. It's kind of a relationship. We want that smooth onboarding because it builds trust in clients. It increases that client retention that we all really want. We want clients coming back year after year, pet after pet. We want them to be talking about us and to be our raving fans out in the community and on the digital spaces and to their friends and coworkers.
You mentioned that word trust. This is really where we start building that. We have to effectively take somebody who knows nothing about us, who's never experienced us before, and turn them into that raving fan, that raving client that uses us, every time they have a need. That entire process, it's not easy. It doesn't happen instantaneously, and it's nothing that we should take for granted. That takes hard work. That takes intentionality and thinking through every little step and every detail. That builds trust. When we say we're going to do something and we follow through, that builds trust. That doesn't happen the first time we say we scoop the litter and we scoop the litter. That happens when we say the next step in this process is for you to get an email, and then they get an email.
But this process isn't always easy. The mistakes can be made in our onboarding process. It could be filling out forms online. Maybe there's a misspelling in a form, or the link doesn't go exactly where we need it to, or they have to repeat the same info in person at the meet and greet. You ask digitally how much food the pet gets, and then you repeat that process in the meet and greet. The client may perceive that as redundant or not necessary.
Or that you're just not paying attention. This is especially prevalent if you ask a question over the phone when somebody calls you or they text you, and then you have them fill out that same information on a form, and then you ask that same information in person, or you ask it in another way or in a different way. This is annoying to clients because they'll say, I already told you this. Why don't you already have this filled out? Don't you already have this information somewhere? And then there's just inconsistent communication. Maybe you change the onboarding process midstream where you are doing all things over the phone. You're doing all phone conversations. And then suddenly and unexpectedly, you start emailing the person. And without telling them, the next step is going to be you're going to get an email from you. And then you're confused why they're confused or why they didn't get the email. Or maybe you say, I collect all this information over the phone. But then you say, well, actually, I need to do an in-person consultation. And it really stems from us not understanding the best ways and methods to collect information or to communicate with people throughout the process.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to confuse clients because they don't know what the next step is. If we ask clients to repeatedly create profiles, maybe we have a form on our website and then you review that and say, okay, well, now the next step is to go to my website and fill out another form. Well, that's probably not going to have a good taste in the client's mouth because they're having to basically do double the work. And this gets to a conversation that Colin and I have repeatedly of how much hand-holding do we want to do for clients in our business. And this is definitely something you have to decide for yourself. Do you want to be super high-end, super high-touch, where all the client needs to do is fill in their address and the pets that they have, the names of their pets, and then you just show up and collect the rest of the information at the meet and greet? Or do you want the client to do all of the work before the meet and greet, everything about their pet's feeding and walking regime? Unfortunately, there's no right way to do this. It's whatever workflow works best for you and what you want your clients to experience.
As long as you communicate that to them, that's what's really critical here, is that it doesn't really matter what the process is. Of course it does, right? You can't just say, okay, now you're going to jump through 3 hoops of fire and you need to climb Mount Everest and get back to me, right? There is some sense that we have to apply to this. However, it is our job, it is beholden to us to communicate what the entire process is. What's the expectation of the client? Because if you have a client who is expecting a very high-touch, hand-holding experience, and you don't tell them that actually you need to go fill out 3 different forms and answer 100 questions, that's not going to land well with them. The same way for the other thing. Maybe somebody really wants to fill out all of the detailed questions themselves, and instead you withhold that, and then you go all high-end and high-touch. Letting people know up front the expectations and how much work really is what we're getting down to here is on them. That cuts out all of the confusion and really lets the client know what to do next. Which is just what we didn't have whenever we went to go to this local business. We had this free gift certificate that we wanted to use. First, there was confusion as to whether we even had the gift certificate. They didn't believe us, right? And so we had to prove to them that we did that. And then we needed to schedule the actual consultation, but we also had to create individual profiles for each of us. And then after we created those, they were going to do a phone consultation. And so we scheduled a phone consultation, which was supposed to be different than our in-person consultation. But it turned out that the phone consultation was supposed to happen at the actual location of this business. And Megan and I thought it was going to be in our home. So we had to rush over to do the phone consultation. And then we were asked all of the same questions that were in our online profiles that we had already created in person. And then we actually had the actual consultation before we could get to the redeeming of this gift certificate in the first place. And the whole thing was just a constant reminder of this is unpleasant. This is not fun. This was supposed to be an interesting experience for us. We were excited about actually getting to do this. It was something we had kind of thought about before, but now it was free and we were going through this process. And it just robbed us of that fun and of enjoyment of what we were actually there to do. And how much more so as business owners ourselves do we need to cultivate that relationship through every step with our potential clients. It's not just about meeting the needs of our existing clients and basically saying, once you run through the gauntlet, I'll take care of you. It's, I'm here for you at every step of the stage. Every step along the way, I am here to make sure that you have an amazing experience so that the first time you're wowed by me isn't whenever you get home and your dog is happy, or isn't whenever you get that first report. It's when I tell you that what to expect during this onboarding, and then I follow through with that. It's keeping our promise at every stage.
But there is a balance here between barriers and simplicity. Now, we had a lot of barriers at the med spa. Unbeknownst to us, we were just handed a free gift certificate and we thought, oh, wow, cool, we're going to go get this thing. But turns out there were a lot of hoops we had to jump through. There is a fine line between that and going too simplistic, I just take anybody and everybody. If you just call me, I'll show up and take care of your pets.
Well, especially in a pet care business, right? We actually require a lot of information, an extensive amount of detail before we can execute well. We have to know what kind of medications pets are on and how to administer those. We have to know behavioral quirks. We have to know feeding regimes. We have to know all of these things for not just our safety, but the pet safety, our team safety and well-being of everybody, and make sure that our service is delivered accurately, right? There is a bulk of information that we just have to have. It's necessary in order to do what we need to do.
Even if you don't think that the service you offer is complicated, there is still a lot of information that you have to have. When we collect that data for the pet details, that's crucial for, again, our safety, their safety, the quality of care. We want to give the best care, which means we need a lot of details. We're not going to apologize for that. And then emergency preparedness. Is your dog on special heart medication? Well, that probably means that during the summer months, we're not going to walk them as long because we don't want there to be a safety issue.
What this really boils down to is we as a business owner have to find the line and the balance between necessary complexity and unnecessary complexity. That necessary complexity being all of this information that we need to provide accurate and amazing care versus unnecessary complexity of duplicate forms or repetitive questions or unnecessary hoops and steps that people have to jump through without streamlining it. That's what we want to diminish. If anything, we need to find ways to reduce as much unnecessary complexity so that we can add the necessary complexity and make that as robust as possible. What happens is when both the necessary complexity and the unnecessary complexity are high, it means it turns off clients because it's just not worth it to them. They don't see the value. So finding ways to reduce the unnecessary so that we can get that necessary and not feel like we're dragging it out of clients, not feel like we're just banging against a door that nobody's answering. We can do that by making the process smooth, simple, and straightforward.
Something that will make your life easier is our friends at Pet Sitters Associates. All pet care professionals should have specific pet business insurance. As a pet sitter, you know how much trust goes into caring for someone's furry family member, but who's got your back? For over 25 years, Pet Sitters Associates has been helping pet care pros like you with affordable, flexible insurance coverage. Whether you're walking dogs, pet sitting, or just starting out, they make it easy to protect your business. Get a free quote today at petsitllc.com. And as a listener, you get $10 off your membership when you use code Confessional at checkout. That's petsitllc.com because your peace of mind is part of great pet care. We want to create the best onboarding experience ever, right? So how do you do that? You clearly outline your onboarding steps beforehand to set expectations. We've talked about this. The 1, 2, 3 on your website. Have a page, a process page of this is what we do. Talk about it on your social media, on your Google business profile.
Yeah, this pre-onboarding step is what gets missed from a lot of people of saying, hey, I'm so glad you contacted me and you want to get started. Here's what the next steps are going to look like before we can start rendering service. And whether that's verbally or whether that is on your page or something, just letting people know what to expect really makes this whole thing, it sets it off on such an amazing foot.
And then next is the streamlined forms. You need this. Use the software effectively to gather information digitally one time. Try your best to not ask the client the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, the great part about using a digital collection form like this is that you can link it to other things. So maybe you have a Google Forms where you have that information entered, it syncs over to a Google Sheet. You can then copy that information from Google Sheets into your software or into a profile that you create or whatever. Or maybe you're, take all this information through paper forms. Well, you can scan those, OCR it, and then copy and paste that somewhere so that you're not having to you aren't having to, copy and paste so many times, and the client isn't having to do that either.
Whatever you choose to do, make sure that it is consistent. Stick with a clearly communicated onboarding routine. So again, whether that's phone, virtual, or in person, but try your best not to mix them randomly because again, that creates confusion in the client. They're not likely to go with you. They think, oh, this is too hard. I don't understand. I just want to walk away. Which is kind of the point that we got to at the med spa. I was so confused on what was actually happening. I was getting really frustrated. But because this thing was free, I was like, okay, well, we're committed to this. I really want this thing. But I almost walked away a few times.
Yeah, it really got us questioning. You just had us fill out this form online. Why are you asking me for my birthday?
Again.
Why are you asking me for these things? Go to the profile. It's all there. It was frustrating. It was inconsistent. And it was not using technology very well, right? They had these tools, they had these systems, they had these processes, or so we thought, and there was no connection between them. There was so much redundancy. And we when we use technology, we don't want to replace anything. We don't want to replace relationships and one-on-one communication. What we want to do is enhance clarity. We want to make things simple. And so whether you are using pen and paper and phone calls for your business and onboarding process, we know there are a ton of businesses run like that. That is totally fine. What is really important here is that you have a system in place, and that whether you're using a booking software or pen and paper and calendar, that you know the steps of what's required so that you don't lose track and the client knows what to expect.
When you keep things simple for not only clients, but yourself, it is easier to set those boundaries. Having those clear boundaries helps attract ideal clients and repel the ones that are not suitable for your business. You don't want to work with them. Because when clients know your office hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they know when to contact you. And when it's not office hours, they know, okay, well, I probably shouldn't expect a response over the weekend.
Well, and in the context here of the onboarding, when clients know that the boundaries of what's required to become one of your clients, it really prevents them from trying to skip the steps or jump over things and create a shortcut. And this is what's hard, right? We get this a lot where somebody says, I want you to walk my dog tomorrow. And we say, okay, here are the 3 steps it takes to become a client. And they say, I don't have time for that. I want you to walk my dog tomorrow. And we go, then we can't walk your dog tomorrow unless you go through these steps. That, again, it's boundaries. It's also setting the expectation of how we want to be worked with, and make sure that they know that, because if you start off a relationship being able to cut corners and make shortcuts and get around your policies, you're just setting them up to do that every time they need you. And it's more and more headache every time it happens.
Which is why some pet care businesses choose not to do last-minute bookings. They say that if a client contacts us last minute, we're not going to take them on because that sets a bad precedent that we're going to be available last minute every time, and that may not be what they want their business to look like. So think about ways that you can improve your onboarding process right now. Maybe you do an audit of your onboarding experience from the client's perspective. You fill out the forms like a client would. Obviously, you're not going to have a phone conversation with yourself, but
yeah, maybe.
I am my own worst client.
But you can have friends do it, right? You can have family do it. Maybe you can have existing clients tell you what the onboarding experience was like. If you have team members, have them do it. The more eyes and ears and experiences you can have going through this process will allow you to make sure it's strengthened, and that a lot of the assumptions, because what happens is, we know what the outcome is that we want, and we know the process and the steps that go on behind the scenes. But sometimes those assumptions can mean that we skip over steps unintentionally through the onboarding process, and we assume people will know what's going to happen next, when in all actuality, they don't, because it's all in our head.
If you don't have an onboarding process, create a checklist for one. What exact steps do clients need to do? And if you do have a process already, make sure that everything you put on that checklist is being done currently. Also check to make sure that you have follow-ups for clients. If they miss a step and need to go back and do something, or if it's been several days and you need to follow up and say, hey, are you still interested in this? Try to automate those if possible.
Or at least have scripts that you've pre-written ahead of time. I know this is a big step that we took in our own business of having these, because we were having to remind people, or these same situations kept coming up and coming up. So we just thought, well, we need to make a Google Doc with all of this same stuff so that we can just go copy and paste it and be done with this and not have to waste any more brain power. So just having these scripts that you need for various steps along the way, make sure that you are also consistent in how you're communicating and telling people with this so that you can reduce that variation and confusion.
So when you think back to your onboarding process, is it a smooth process? Are there any kinks or mistakes that need to be worked out? Find a simple yet effective process. Make sure that you have boundaries set up and that your process ultimately is clear so the client knows what to expect.
And that it matches the services that you're trying to offer. An onboarding experience for somebody that is wanting overnights would look different than somebody who's wanting, drop-in visits versus walks versus cat sitting. However you have your business structured, make sure that the questions that you're asking, the steps throughout the process, and all of that is designed to cultivate trust towards the service that that person ultimately wants. And all the while making sure that you are also communicating those boundaries, what those next steps are. You can't cut corners. You can't contact me at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., in order to keep this moving forward. You set the tone. And the client's response to your tone and your boundaries and barriers in your process will tell you whether they're actually going to be a good fit for your business in the long run. Because never forget, this is a two-way street. Yes, they want to use your services and how you use them, but do you want to work with this person? Part of that interview process is the onboarding and whether they actually work through that in the way that is beneficial to everybody.
Or if they just complain their way through it of, I have to do this next step and I found this confusing. I'm not sure what to do. And you have to make those decisions yourself. If you think your process is simple and it gets you what you need, but you have somebody that complains at every step of the way, they're probably not a good fit for your company. If you would like to share your onboarding process or success or horror story with other listeners, you can email us at petsitterconfessional@gmail.com, or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram at petsitterconfessional. We would love to know how you have changed your onboarding process over the years. I know the 13 years we've been doing this, ours looks completely different than it did
very different
early on. We would also like to thank Pet Sitters Associates and our Patreon people for supporting today's show, and we will talk with you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.